In this chapter about the masks, let's go to the first folder called Layer Mask. Then let's open the photo of the galaxy, just like that. Now I'm going to open the file of the hot air balloon. For that I can go to the menu File, then choose Place Embedded, and select the photo of the balloon. I'm going to increase a little bit the size of the photo by clicking on its corner. Press down the Alt key or Option on Mac to keep the photo centered. Then hit Enter to import the photo. Now in the Layers panel there are two layers, the Balloons layer and the Backgrounds layer. The goal is to see the galaxy inside the shape of the balloon. We are going to do like a big hole. For that, the easiest way is to take the Eraser tool. If I click, Photoshop doesn't want to remove the pixels, because it is a smart object. I need to rasterize the layer. After that, it will become a standard layer of pixels. I can right-click to adjust the size of the eraser, maybe about 200 pixels. Don't forget to set the hardness to 0%. Hit Enter, then I can click and drag to create a hole. And I reveal the galaxy, just like that. That's the easiest way to do this effect. But the downside of this method is that it is destructive. The pixels are totally removed. The only way to go back is to undo this action. If I want to be more precise, I can use a mask. It will be reversible and non-destructive. That's the best practice. To create a mask, firstly select the good layer, the layer of the balloon. Then at the bottom of the Layers panel, click on the mask icon to create a mask. Now a new mask is applied on the selected image. This mask is totally white by default, because initially there wasn't any selection. So with the mask selected, you really need to be sure to select the mask. That's very important. Don't select the thumbnail of the image. When the mask is selected, there is a white outline around the thumbnail. Alright? Then I'm gonna go on the left to take the brush tool, just right here. With the brush tool selected, I will choose a color. When you are using a mask, you can use two colors, the black color and the white color. To display these two colors, I can click on these tiny black and white squares, or I can hit the D key on my keyboard. Now, as you can see, white is my foreground color and black is my background color. So now I will paint with a white color in the mask. I'm gonna right-click and increase the size of the brush, maybe about 200 pixels. Hit Enter to validate. If I paint, nothing is happening because the mask is already white. So all I need to do is to swap the colors. For that, I can click on this double arrow or I can hit the X key. Now black is my foreground color. The mask is still selected. I'm gonna right-click to set the hardness to 0. This is a soft brush. Now I can click and drag to paint inside the mask with a black color. I create the same hole like with the eraser. As you can see in the mask, I painted with a black color. And the black color hides the balloon's pixels. White reveals the pixels, and black hides the pixels. You need to keep this concept in mind. Now, because I use a mask, this is totally reversible. As you can see in the Layers panel, the original image is protected, and the mask is linked to the image. Now, if I go to the left and swap the colors by clicking on the double arrow or hit the X key, white is my foreground color. If I paint, I'm gonna reveal the removed pixels of the balloon, because white reveals. This is totally reversible and my original image is protected. That was the goal. If I double-click on the foreground color, the color picker is opened and I can choose a gray color. The brightness is set to 50% and the hue and the saturation are set to 0. So when I paint with a gray color, I can take the brush tool or hit the B key. If I paint over the balloon, as you can see, the transparency is 50%. What does it mean? It means that I can see at the same time the balloon and the galaxy. There is a mix of both images. If I want, I can right-click on the thumbnail of the mask, then choose Delete Layer Mask. As you can see, I go back to my original image. The photo is protected, it's non-destructive. To conclude, a layer mask is reversible. If you paint in a mask with a white color, you can reveal the pixels. If you paint in a mask with a black color, it will hide the pixels. Voila, that's all for this lesson. In this lesson about the masks, let's go to the folder Mask Options. Then let's open the photo of Aline. I click and drag the image to Photoshop, just like that. Now the goal is to add a texture to the skin of Aline. For that, let's import the image of the texture. I'm gonna go to the menu File, then choose Place Embedded. In the Masks folder, I'm gonna choose the photo of the cracks. I resize a little bit the image by grabbing its corners. Then I adjust the position of the texture, which is over the head of Aline. Hit Enter to validate. Because I imported the image, Photoshop converts automatically the layer into a smart object, so I can transform the texture without losing quality. Now the goal is to hide the texture. We are going to do the opposite of what we did before. We are going to start with a black mask. Let me show you that. In the Layers panel, let's select the cracks layer. Then, at the bottom, let's go to the mask icon right here. Press down the Alt key or Option on Mac, then click on the icon. And now the mask created is totally black, as you can see. And because black hides the pixels, we don't see the texture anymore. But now I'm going to choose the brush tool in the toolbar on the left. Then click on these tiny squares right here to choose the black and white colors, or hit the D key. As you can see, white is my foreground color and black is my background color. As you know, white reveals the pixels. So I'm going to right click to choose a big brush. Then I want a soft brush, so I will choose 0 for the hardness, hit Enter. Make sure that the opacity and the flow are set to 100%. And now if I paint, the texture appears because white reveals the pixels. Now in the mask, we have the black and white colors. Then let's select the thumbnail of the texture and I'm going to reduce the opacity. Let's start from 0, then increase slowly the opacity until the result looks realistic, just like that. Let's improve the render by using the blend modes. I'm going to choose Soft Light, then I increase slightly the opacity. It's totally up to you. You can play around with the blend modes and the opacity. Now if I right click on the mask, we will see a couple of options. You can disable the mask just like that. As you can see, the mask is not applied. This is the original image. Let's go back to the normal blend mode to see it better. As you can see, the mask is deactivated. If I hold the Shift key and I click on the mask, that's a shortcut to deactivate the mask. It's useful to see the difference with the original image. If I want, I can delete the layer mask to restore the original image. I can also drag the mask to the trash to delete the mask, just like that. I can also right-click, then choose Add Mask to Selection. Photoshop will load the selection from the mask. Then I can use this selection to create an adjustment layer, for example. OK, I'm gonna click on Deselect. Now if I hold the Alt key or Option on Mac and I click on the thumbnail of the mask, as you can see the mask is entirely visible on the canvas. It could be useful if you want to see your mask with precision. If I click again on the mask with the Alt key, I go back to the original image. If I click on this link right here, the mask will be detached from the image. So I can move the mask or the image independently. Then don't forget to link again the mask and the image. Now I can move the mask and the image together. Then let me show you another important point. When you click on the mask in the Properties panel, you can access two other options. You can increase the feather, the mask will have soft edges. Let me show you that by holding the Alt key or Option on Mac, then click on the thumbnail of the mask to see the entire mask. We will see it better. If I increase the feather, as you can see the edges are blurred, so I can adjust the edges of the mask. Finally, press down the Alt key to go back to the original image. We will cover this function Select and Mask in the next lesson. And then this icon right here is useful to load the selection from the mask. It's like right-clicking then choosing Add Mask to Selection. To conclude, you can access to the options of the mask by right-clicking on the mask, then you can hide the mask, delete the mask, etc. Or you can click on the mask, then in the Properties panel, you can access to other options, like the feather and the Select and Mask option. Voila, that's all for this lesson. In this chapter about the masks, Let's go to the mask application folder. And then let's open the photo of Laura. Just like that. In this photo, the goal is to detach Laura from the background by using a mask. First of all, let's make a selection of Laura. The easiest way to do that is to click on this contextual bar right here on the Select Subject button. Or you can go to the menu Select, then choose Subject. Now Photoshop will use artificial intelligence to detect the edges of the subject. It's done with only one click. Then I'm going to click on this mask icon right here to create a mask from the selection. If I click, as you can see, Laura is cutted out from the background. Alright, so now in the Layers panel, we have a layer mask. There is also another way to do that. With my selection active, I can go at the bottom of the Layers panel, then I click on the mask icon to create a mask. It's up to you. The advantage of using a mask is that it is reversible, it's non-destructive. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit to show you the missing areas. So I press down the Alt key option on Mac, then scroll the mouse wheel up. There is a missing area right here. For that, I'm gonna click on the mask, take the brush tool, choose a white color for the foreground color. I can hit the D key to choose the black and white colors. White is my foreground color, that's okay. Do you remember white reveals the pixels? Now the size of the brush is too big. So I'm going to right click, then reduce the size of the brush, just like that. In this case, I'm going to increase the hardness to the maximum value, because I want sharp edges for my brush. Validate with Enter. To sum up quickly, the mask is selected, the brush is selected, and white is my foreground color. At the top, the opacity and the flow are set to 100%, everything is okay. So I can paint to reveal the missing area, just like so. Then I press down the spacebar to move across the image. There's no missing area right here. Hold the spacebar again to move across the image. As you can see on the finger, there is a missing area. To solve the problem, in the Properties panel, I'm going to decrease the density of the mask to display the missing pixels. Now I know exactly where I need to paint. I decrease the size of the brush to be more precise, hit Enter, and I can paint with a white color to reveal the finger. If I increase the density, as you can see, the mask is improved and the finger is now totally visible because I added the missing area by painting in the mask. Press down the spacebar. I check the quality of the edges. If everything is properly cutted out, now let me show you if my brush exceeds the shape of Laura, just like that. I can hit the X key on my keyboard to swap the colors. Black is now my foreground color, so if I paint in the mask, I can remove the pixels. I'm going to double click on the hand tool to see the entire image. Now Laura is detached from the background thanks to the mask. That was the goal. Then I can import a new background to create a nice photo montage. If I want, I can increase slightly the feather to blur a little bit the edges. I press down the Alt key, then click on the mask to show you what it does. As you can see, the edges are blurred all around the subject, so I can fine-tune the cutout. In this example, we started with a quick selection of the subject, we created a mask to detach the subject from the background, then we painted in the mask to improve the result. And this is totally reversible. That's a good point. Voila, that's all for this lesson. In this chapter about the masks, let me go to the folder called Select and Mask. Then let's open the photo of the landscape in Photoshop, just like that. After that, let's also import the photo of Eva. Click and drag to add this new layer. I'm going to reduce the size of the image by clicking on its corner and adjust slightly the size of the subject. Hit Enter to validate. Click and drag with the Move tool to center the image. Now, if I want to remove the background, I can use the Remove Background button. It's quick and easy. I can click to remove automatically the background. And it's done. The result looks pretty nice. But we can make some adjustments to improve the result. As you can see right here, there is like a hole. We need to retouch and fine-tune this edge. If I move around the subject, you can see that we can improve the edges. There is also a red color around the edges. We need to improve that. Okay, so I double-click on the hand tool to see the entire image. Now to fine-tune the mask, I click on the thumbnail of the mask. Then in the Properties panel, there is this button Select and Mask to improve the edges of the mask. Or you can double-click directly on the thumbnail of the mask in order to access to the Select and Mask workspace. On the left, there are the tools. On the right, there are the options of adjustments. The most useful tool is this one, which is called the Refine Edge Brush tool. At the top, I can adjust the size of the brush. I can decrease the size to be more precise. Then all you need to do is to paint over the edges that you want to improve. Let's zoom in to see the edges better, just like that. Now I let the magic happen, just by painting over the edge that I need to improve. Release the click. As you can see, the hole disappears and the result is more natural. Let me show you the difference with the original image by checking Show Original at the top. Here is the before and this is the after. It's much better. But right here, I think I have removed too much hair. For that, I press down the Alt key or Option on Mac to remove this area of calculation. Now we can see more hair, right? In the Properties panel, I can also change the view mode. The best view for me is this one, Onion Skin View. I can also decrease the transparency to see the background of the original image. You can also choose another view right here with a background of color. The black and white view, which is the mask. You can see more details. I advise you to use mostly the Onion Skin View, which is useful. Now I'm going to check this option right here, Show Edge. As you can see, these are the areas where I painted to improve the cutout. If I press down the Alt key or Option on Mac, I can remove this area of calculation. So if I uncheck Show Edge, I need to paint again to add this area of calculation. If I check Show Original, I can see the difference with the original image. Then right here, there are two tabs. You can choose Object Aware. By default, it's activated. This option is great for complex backgrounds, such as hair and fur, for example. In most cases, this option is well adapted. Then for the section Edge Detection, if I increase the radius, the area of calculation will be all around the subject. Let me show you that. If I check Show Edge, there is an area of calculation with a thickness which is following the edges of the subject. In my case, I don't want that, because the improvements need to be in a specific area, especially the hair, only on the painted areas. So I set the radius to 0 because I don't need this option. Uncheck Show Edge. And in this section, Global Refinements, you can fine-tune the targeted areas. You can move the slider, then see if it's better. In this case, I don't need to smooth the edges. With the feather, I can blur a little bit the edges. It's more natural. I can fine-tune the contrast of the edges to improve the result. Then Shift Edge is useful if you want to expand the mask, for example. So with these sliders, you can really fine-tune the edges. Then in the output settings, I can check Decontaminate, and as you can see, the result is much better. I can decrease the amount to 0, then increase slightly the value until it looks good. Like so, the result is optimized. In this case, this option is great because it removes the red color of the original background. Finally, let me show you the difference with the original image. So this is the before and this is the after. Finally, at the bottom for the output, I'm going to choose New Layer with Layer Mask. Click OK to validate. Now, as you can see, a mask is created. Let's double-click on the hand tool to see the entire image. As you can see, the cutout looks natural and realistic. That was the goal. To conclude, we applied the Remove Backgrounds button to detach the subject from the background. Then, by double-clicking on the thumbnail of the mask, we accessed to the Select and Mask workspace. We painted with the Refine Edge Brush tool to improve the edges only on specific areas. And finally, you can fine-tune the edges with all the other options. Voilà, that's all for this lesson.